Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you've just dipped your toes into the world of the Unforgiven through that first scene, you've met 9-year-old Ellie Roth.
The little Mars rat.
Exactly. And you've probably felt that immediate pull of a world that feels huge, but at the same time just incredibly claustrophobic and personal.
Oh, completely.
Hmm.
That prologue is, it's just masterful because it sets the entire tone in just a few pages. You get the high stakes, you get this profound sense of neglect, and this huge confusion of priorities.
Right. And that's what we want to do today. We're here to sort of bridge that gap for you.
Our mission is to give you the shortcut, really, the essential context to understand the structural compromises, the economic rot, and the very long, very interconnected chain of failures that actually built this universe.
We want to show you why all these characters, even before the main story really kicks off, are already trapped. They're already being forced to make these impossible choices.
Yeah, they're products of a broken system before they've even had a chance to act.
Okay, so let's start right there with Ellie, age 9. That name they've given her, Little Mars Rat. It's not a nice name.
Not at all. It's not affectionate. It tells you everything you need to know about her place in this collapsing society.
She's neglected, but she's also incredibly resourceful, sharp enough to survive in a place where, the adults are clearly failing.
And a genius, really. A scavenger who hacks these massive, complex, off-world ships just to, pass the time, to feel something.
It's just incredible. And that moniker, it's a window into the colony's desperation, isn't it?
It is. It's a world where the entire infrastructure has failed so badly that a child's hobby is learning highly advanced technological bypasses. It's a survival mechanism.
The source material really paints this picture of extreme discipline. It talks about her routine.
The familiar routine, yeah. Waiting for her father's chainsaw snoring.
What a detail.
It's so vivid, and only then does she slip out with this practiced stillness you'd expect from a trained operative, not a little girl.
That contrast is what makes it so powerful. This small, incredibly skilled kid in this giant, broken, and empty environment.
And we see the details of how she does it. She uses a stick to poke the keypad.
Which is such a great little detail. It's not just because she's too short to reach. It's probably because the keypad itself is, dangerously cold or filthy.
It's practical. And then she recites this line, this amazing detail, the Harlock spy line.
No tail, no eyes.
No tail, no eyes. And that's the psychological armor she's building, even at 9.
Who is Harlock exactly, just for context?
Harlock's a figure from old Earth fiction, a spy, a ghost. So by reciting that line, she's turning this really mundane, desperate act of scavenging into a grand adventure.
Yes, it just underscores her isolation, doesn't it? She's creating a whole world in her head to cope with the one she's actually in.
She's looking for an identity, for a purpose, in a place that has completely and utterly overlooked her.
But the scene also gives us our first big clue about the science of this world and the health of the colonists, her appearance.
Right. The dark blue skin and that acute sensitivity to the sun.
This isn't just a cool sci-fi aesthetic.
No, not at all. It's a crucial piece of world building. It confirms that every single Mars colonist has to take what's called the blue vaccine.
A prophylactic.
Exactly. Against a Mars-specific endemic disease. The blue skin is a permanent side effect. It's a marker. It says, I am Mars-born.
And that single physical trait ties her immediately and tragically to everything that's about to happen, especially with the military.
It sets up so much that pays off later. It's a brilliant bit of foreshadowing.
And then we get to the end of the prologue, which, when you read it, is just this perfect, chilling piece of dramatic irony.
Oh, it's a gut punch. She gets to the spot near the shuttle bay,
Right.
and she's just watching ships break atmosphere.
And she murmurs to herself, merchants, at this time of night.
And you, the reader, you know instantly. You realize she is completely devastatingly wrong.
Those were never merchant ships.
Never. They were the enemy, the rebels. Specifically, Blackjack's unit, arriving under a fake civilian profile.
Using the thin traffic patterns to just slide right in.
So the colony wasn't about to be attacked. The catastrophe was already happening. It was taking root in the darkness while this 9-year-old girl was just trying to find a broken power conduit to pick apart.
Which brings us to the big question, the one that really sets the stage for the entire story.
How did this happen?
Right. How did Mars, this thriving, foundational human colony, get so deserted, so vulnerable, that an enemy force could just slip in under a fake manifest?
To answer that, you have to look bigger. You have to look at the entire political and economic structure of the Federation that let this jewel of a colony just rot.
Okay, so let's pivot from Ellie on the ground to this vast political thing, the Federation, and it's a paradox from the start.
It really is.
Mm.
The sources describe the Federation as an Earth-based polity, a democratic society.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, by all accounts, it's one of the best, most stable human arrangements ever achieved.
It's not a dystopia hiding in plain sight. It actually works.
It works. It has structurally solved some of humanity's oldest, ugliest problems.
What does that mean in practice, though, when it says it's structurally reduced poverty and marginalized overt bigotry?
It implies a system, a highly sophisticated technocratic government that guarantees basic material needs: food, housing, healthcare. It's all managed through these very efficient, often automated systems.
So it's not some kind of, utopia based on everyone being good. It's an engineered stability.
Exactly. It's engineered. Its entire political focus, its core anxiety, is preventing what they call historical regression,
Meaning a return to fascism.
a return to large-scale systemic fascism, or the kind of unchecked corporate oligarchies that almost destroyed Earth centuries before the story starts. So fundamentally, it's a good society,
Hmm.
but it's very rigid in how it applies its logic.
Okay, so if Earth is this stable, resource-secure place, why did the colonies fall apart? Why was there this strategic pivot?
Because the success on Earth created a brand new existential crisis: sustainability failure. Those huge, hyperdense megacities, even with all the technocratic genius running them, they were approaching their limits. Ecological limits, resource limits. They were stable, but they weren't sustainable for the long haul.
So the Federation had to make a choice for the whole species.
A massive species-wide decision. And the choice they made was to pivot all investment, all logistics, all their focus toward deep system resource routing, asteroid mining, exoplanet extraction, building the industrial infrastructure for long-term survival way out in the far reaches of the system.
It's a cold logic, then.
It is. It was framed as a species survival project. The logic was prevent Earth's eventual collapse by guaranteeing a supply of raw materials, even if that means starving the assets that are no longer considered essential.
And Mars and the Moon, these incredible symbols of humanity's first steps into space, they became casualties of that cold logic.
They were deemed obsolete, a massive logistical drain. They were consuming resources the Federation decided it urgently needed for the big pivot. So they weren't abandoned out of, malice. It was strategic necessity.
A planned downsizing.
An aggressive, planned downsizing of investment in what they now saw as basically expensive, outdated experiments.
And this is where the story's core philosophical problem really begins: the centrality of choice. If the Federation was pulling support, why didn't the colonists just pack up and leave?
This is the critical, beautiful irony of the whole setup, and it's rooted in the Federation's genuine goodness,
In its ideals.
in its highest ideals. Their entire political system respects bodily and political autonomy above almost everything else. They refused, on principle, to coerce the resettlement of hundreds of thousands of people.
So they gave them a choice.
They offered a choice: relocate back to Earth, or to the new deep system zones where the jobs are, or remain on Mars and the Moon with a severely reduced, essential-only support.
And most of them chose to stay.
Most chose to stay. They were defined by their roots, multi-generational identity.
They were Martians. They were Lunars.
Exactly. They were the descendants of the original pioneers. Earth felt like this distant, sterile political center. Their identity was tied to the red dust, to the domes. They chose family, their own cultural micro-societies, and this memory of their own pride.
So the Federation saw itself as honoring their choice, honoring their tradition.
They saw it as respecting autonomy, a moral victory.
But the consequence of honoring that choice was a slow, grinding economic death for the colony.
Because that infrastructure can't just run on its own. It needs constant support, constant input.
And the decay was slow.
Insidious. Supply lines thinned out to just a trickle. Maintenance schedules for life support, for power generation, they became sporadic, which is exactly why someone like Ellie's father could be sleeping while critical systems were failing all around them.
The whole economy just stagnated.
They went from being these vibrant experimental hubs to what the book calls the Rust Belt of space. Frontier towns where legitimate commerce was replaced by black markets and pirate traders who were just filling the void the Federation left behind.
This establishes such a complex and, frankly, tragic truth for the whole story. The Federation, by sticking to one of its highest ideals, individual freedom, refusal to coerce inadvertently created the perfect vacuum.
A vacuum of scarcity and instability. And the colonists, They didn't feel respected. They felt betrayed. They felt abandoned.
And that emotional gap, that dissonance, is the real foundation of the entire war.
If you look at it historically, it's fascinating. The Federation solved the problem of scarcity that comes from inequality, but it completely failed to solve the problem of scarcity that comes from distance and logistics.
And that failure created the perfect soil for resentment to grow into something far more dangerous.
So into this fertile soil of decay and resentment steps the adversary.
And we can't really call them a traditional army, can we? They're much more of a decentralized ideological threat.
That's a great way to put it. They're a movement. The sources specify it's a lunar movement, based mainly on the moon and the orbital peripheries. Other areas that were also suffering from the Federation's resource pivot.
So it's not one unified force.
It's a dangerous patchwork. Cells, militias, local warlords, all unified not by a coherent political platform, but by a very powerful mythic narrative.
What's that narrative built on?
It's a toxic mix. It's about a return to a perceived lost greatness, a kind of racialized destiny, and this deeply spiritualized violence.
And they recruit from the places that are hurting the most.
Explicitly, they draw from areas where supply constraints, cultural alienation, and economic stagnation are at their absolute worst. The material is very clear that they use iconography and rhetoric designed to exploit that generational resentment. They frame themselves as the true inheritors of some kind of superior destiny.
Tapping into that deep pain of feeling left behind by the powerful, stable Earth.
Exactly. That sense of abandonment is their primary recruiting tool.
But ideology alone doesn't put food on the table. And this gets to the paradox of fascist growth, as the outline calls it. They get their foothold by fixing the very problems the Federation created.
Precisely. This is what makes them so insidious and so effective. They don't just show up offering a philosophy. They show up with tangible, short-term solutions.
Very efficient.
Hyper-efficient at filling the logistical gaps the Federation left wide open. Think about it from the perspective of a colonist. You're in a remote settlement that hasn't seen a medical supply ship in 3 months because of Federation bureaucracy.
Yeah.
The rebels don't have that bureaucracy.
So leaders like Blackjack, they actually become Robin Hood figures to the locals.
They absolutely do. The background material gives specific examples. They'll intercept a Federation supply freighter that's headed for some deep system project, and they'll redistribute the supplies, food, medicine, power cells locally.
They're providing for the people.
They're offering meals for hungry kids. They're giving idle teenagers, kids with no economic future, a radical sense of purpose and community. They give them uniforms, ranks, a mission.
And they act as protectors.
Yes, they'll actively go after the local pirate gangs who are preying on the colonists, and they'll punish them. They step in as the authority where the distant Federation can't or won't.
So if you're a local, you see the rebels as the people who fed your children and stopped the local crime boss from shaking you down.
Meanwhile, the distant Federation is just this faceless bureaucrat who caused the scarcity in the first place. You can see how the choice becomes very easy for a lot of people.
That's the core tension. The enemy is doing real, immediate good on a small scale, saving lives from starvation and anarchy,
while at the same time indoctrinating those same people into a catastrophically dangerous, hateful, and destructive worldview.
The locals see the good and they overlook the rot, the weaponized conspiracy theories, the talk of a superior destiny.
They overlook it because their immediate needs are being met. It's a devil's bargain.
And that structural dilemma is what makes the war so grinding and awful. It isn't a simple fight of good versus evil.
It's a fight where a fundamentally good system, the Federation, is struggling against a destructive movement that grew directly from the cracks of the good system's own humane, ethical mistakes.
It really forces you, the reader, to grapple with a tough question. Which mistake is worse?
Is it the bureaucratic, impersonal mistake of abandonment that was rooted in trying to keep everyone stable? Or is it the malicious, personal mistake of exploitation that's rooted in a destructive ideology?
And that tension is what defines the entire